Imagine a city of gold and marble, the center of the world, where power is a deadly game played in whispering corridors and shouted in blood-soaked arenas. Now, imagine a woman born in the gutter of this city, an actress, a performer, a courtesan destined for a life of shame and obscurity. This is the story of a woman who clawed her way from the mud to the throne, using her beauty as a weapon and her wits as a shield. She became Theodora, Empress of the Byzantine Empire, one of the most powerful women in history. But her ascent was not a fairy tale. It was a trade. She traded her freedom for a crown, her identity for an empire. This is the story of her golden death, not a single event, but a lifelong process of being consumed by the very power she fought so hard to win. How did the daughter of a bear keeper captivate an emperor? And what was the terrible price she paid for becoming a living icon? To understand Theodora, you can't start in the palace. You have to start in the deafening roar of the hippodrome. Before she was an empress, Theodora was the daughter of Acacius, a humble bear keeper for the Green Chariot faction. When he died suddenly, Theodora, her mother, and her two sisters were left destitute. In a world with no safety net, a woman's options were grimly limited. Theodora and her sisters took to the stage. Now, being an actress in 6th century Constantinople wasn't Shakespeare. It was burlesque, mime, and often, a prelude to sex work. The upper classes saw these women as public property, devoid of honor. Procopius, a historian who loathed Theodora, wrote with venom about her infamous stage performance, depicting Leda and the Swan. While likely exaggerated, his account paints a picture of a young woman using the only tool she had, her body and her fearless charisma, to survive. She was beautiful, intelligent, and utterly captivating. She learned to read a crowd, to manipulate desires, and to project an aura of power even when she had none. These weren't the skills of a future empress, they were the skills of a survivor, honed in the harshest environments. It was this raw, untamed spirit, born from desperation, that would ultimately catch the eye of the most powerful man in the empire. Justinian was not your typical heir to the throne. He was the nephew of the reigning emperor, Justin, a brilliant administrator, a devout Christian, and a man obsessed with restoring the glory of Rome. He was also, by all accounts, utterly captivated by Theodora. We don't know exactly how they met, but we know the result. Justinian, the calculating politician, fell hopelessly in love with the actress from the hippodrome. This was a scandal of epic proportions. Roman law explicitly forbade a man of senatorial rank from marrying an actress. It was unthinkable. But Justinian was relentless. He wasn't just infatuated, he saw in her a mind and a will that mirrored his own. He convinced his uncle, the emperor, to repeal the law specifically so he could marry her. Think about that. The legal framework of the empire was altered for one woman. In 525 AD, they were married. When his uncle died 2 years later, they ascended the throne together. Theodora, the performer from the gutter, was now Augusta, Empress of the Byzantine Empire. The world she knew was gone, and a new, golden cage was being built around her. For 5 years, Theodora and Justinian ruled over a flourishing empire. But the old tensions of the hippodrome never went away. In 532 AD, the infamous Nika riots erupted. It started as a protest by the chariot factions, the Blues and the Greens, but quickly spiraled into a full-blown insurrection against Justinian's high taxes and authoritarian rule. For days, Constantinople burned. The mob chanted Nika, conquer, and crowned a new, rival emperor. Justinian's palace was besieged. His generals were terrified, his advisors panicked. They saw only one option: flee. A ship was waiting, the treasury was packed, and the escape route was planned. Justinian was ready to abandon his city and his throne. And then, Theodora spoke. In the face of trembling generals and a defeated husband, the former actress delivered the performance of her life. She stood before the council and refused to run, declaring, "Royalty is a fine burial shroud." She argued that it was better to die an emperor than to live as an exile. Her courage shamed the men around her into action. Bolstered by her resolve, Justinian ordered his loyal general, Belisarius, to take control. Belisarius marched his troops into the Hippodrome, where the rioters were gathered, and slaughtered them. An estimated 30,000 people were killed. The rebellion was crushed. Theodora had saved the throne, but she did it with a river of blood. This was the moment she proved she was more than just a beautiful consort. She was a ruler, as ruthless and decisive as any emperor. With her power cemented, Theodora became a true co-ruler. Her name appeared alongside Justinian's on official decrees, and she took an active, and deeply personal, interest in lawmaking. This is where the woman who had been exploited fought back for others. She championed some of the most progressive laws for women the world had ever seen. She passed laws that recognized a woman's right to own and inherit property. She made the rape of a woman, regardless of her social standing, a crime punishable by death. Most remarkably, she took on the vile industry that she herself had likely been a part of. Theodora outlawed forced prostitution, and she used her own money to buy girls out of brothels, giving them clothes, money, and a chance at a new life. She established a convent for former sex workers, a sanctuary where they could live in dignity. This wasn't just policy, it was personal. She was reaching back into the world that had almost consumed her and pulling others out of the fire. But not everyone saw Theodora as a reformer or a savior. The historian Procopius, who wrote the official, glowing histories of Justinian's reign, also penned a scandalous book in secret. It was called the Anecdota, or the Secret History, and it was a poison pen takedown of the imperial couple, especially Theodora. In this hidden text, Procopius paints Theodora not as an empress, but as a demon in human form. He accuses her of unspeakable depravity in her youth, of being a ruthless tyrant, a sorceress, and a master of court intrigue who destroyed anyone who crossed her. He claims she and Justinian were vampires who prowled the palace at night, sucking the lifeblood from the empire. It is pure, unadulterated character assassination. So, who was the real Theodora? The pious champion of women's rights, or the vengeful, power-hungry monster from the secret history? The truth, as always, is likely somewhere in the middle. Procopius represented the old aristocratic order that was horrified to see a low-born actress on the throne. To them, she was a symbol of the world turned upside down. His book is a testament to the hatred and fear she inspired in her enemies, a reflection of the brutal politics she had to master to survive. Theodora's influence extended deep into one of the most contentious issues of her time, religion. The empire was fiercely divided over the nature of Christ. The official Chalcedonian creed stated Christ had two natures, human and divine. But a huge portion of the population, particularly in the vital provinces of Egypt and Syria, were Miaphysites, or Monophysites, who believed Christ had a single, unified nature. Justinian was a staunch Chalcedonian, but Theodora was a Miaphysite, or at the very least, a protector of them. This wasn't just about theology, it was about politics. By supporting the Miaphysites, Theodora won the loyalty of these critical eastern provinces. She built her own network of bishops, monks, and spies, creating a power base that was independent of her husband's. She would hide fugitive Miaphysite leaders in her own quarters of the palace, right under Justinian's nose. Was it genuine faith or a brilliant political strategy to keep the empire from tearing itself apart? With Theodora, it was probably both. She played the game of faith and power with the skill of a grandmaster. This brings us to the heart of her story, the Golden Death. As Theodora's power grew, her world shrank. The freedom of the streets, the anonymity of the crowd, that was all gone. She was now a prisoner of the Grand Palace, surrounded by ceremony, protocol, and constant danger. Every meal could be poisoned, every courtier could be an assassin, every friend a potential rival. Her beauty, which had been her ticket to the top, was now a mask she could never remove. She was no longer a woman, she was a symbol, an image on a coin, a figure in a mosaic. The gold that surrounded her, the golden throne, the golden robes, the golden icons was the material of her prison. This was the ultimate price of her ambition. The vibrant, rebellious, free-spirited performer was gone, replaced by a cautious, calculating, and isolated empress. She had won the world, but in doing so, she had to kill the woman she used to be. That was her slow, lifelong, golden death. In 541 AD, a catastrophe unlike any other struck the empire, the plague of Justinian. It was the first recorded pandemic of bubonic plague, a terrifying and invisible enemy that swept through Constantinople, killing up to a third of the city's population. The empire was brought to its knees. Justinian himself caught the plague and came close to death. During this terrifying period, with the emperor incapacitated, Theodora effectively ruled the vast empire alone. She held the government together, managed the crisis, and ensured the line of succession was secure, ruthlessly dealing with any generals who thought of seizing power. It was perhaps her finest, and most difficult, hour. Justinian eventually recovered, but the empire never fully did. The golden age was tarnished, and the shadow of death now lingered over everything. For Theodora, it was a reminder of the fragility of life and power. Her own end was drawing closer. Theodora died in 548 AD, likely from cancer. She was only in her late 40s. Justinian was heartbroken. He would outlive her by nearly 2 decades but would never remarry. He continued to refer to her in his laws as his most pious consort and his gift from God. Today, Theodora's story is a whirlwind of contradictions. Was she a saint who protected the weak, or a sinner who reveled in power? A feminist icon, or a ruthless tyrant? She was, undoubtedly, all of these things. Her legacy is not written in stone, but in shimmering, fragmented gold. The most famous image we have of her is not from Constantinople, but from a church in Ravenna, Italy. There she stands, frozen in time, robed in imperial purple, holding a golden chalice. Her face is pale, her eyes dark and knowing. It is the face of a woman who has seen the very bottom and the very top of the world. The girl from the gutter is gone, but the ghost in the gold mosaic remains, a timeless testament to the woman who was punished with a crown and immortalized by her ambition. So, what do you think? What part of Theodora's incredible story fascinates you the most? Was she a saint, a sinner, or the ultimate survivor who simply did what was necessary to rule in a brutal world? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Her story is one of the most complex and compelling in all of history, and I'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this journey into the Byzantine world, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and if you know someone who loves history, share this video with them. Thanks for watching.